You got Billson here, Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. It's our final segment. Throw away the last one. That one sucked. I'm sorry. Yeah. It did. I wasn't happy with that one. I just threw that one away. Hey, I did want to point this out to you. We want to continue with media days, and I told you. But just reiterating on the one point that I did want to make here. You know, with Lamico Perrine saying he didn't consider Tennessee to be a rivalry to Florida anymore, and I totally understand that. I mean, there is the geography, and there isn't there's just the consistent losing to Florida. It's very one-sided. Florida is not going to battle Tennessee for the SEC East title. They're going to battle Georgia and possibly Missouri, and their revenge games, well, maybe Kentucky because they beat them last year, but, you wouldn't consider Florida and Kentucky to be a rivalry because the one-sidedness there. Just think about this. Last 14 years now, Kentucky has beaten Florida as many times as Tennessee has. So, yeah, you can understand why, wait a minute, what are you telling me about? 1996, that's why it's a rivalry? 1998? Dude, I wasn't even born yet. And plus, like I said, and you heard Dan Mullen talk about in our previous segment a little bit about it, but Florida's playing Miami again. Now, I don't care what the records are there. That's always going to be a rivalry because of geography.
On top of it being a big rivalry game, within the state of Florida. And, it's not one that's played all the time, but there's a lot of tradition in that game. And there's a lot of people that have very strong opinions and are happy that game's being played. And to get to see that rivalry be played is really exciting. And to start off the season.
By the way, that Florida-Miami game should be played every year, in my opinion. Florida State does. Florida State-Miami does. And to be honest with you, I wonder if maybe the reason why Florida doesn't is, okay, couldn't get away with not playing Florida State, obviously. But Miami, hey, we don't play them all the time. Bums in their place. We don't play you. You're closer to Central Florida. You got to worry about them. We're the SEC. And yeah, whereas Miami once ruled all of college football, let alone Florida, if you're old enough, you remember after that Miami-Florida State game, which the Hurricanes always seem to win, Sebastian the Ibis holding up the sign, State Champs, after yet another wide, was it left? Was it right? Didn't matter. You knew the field goal that Florida State was going to kick wasn't going to go through and Miami was going to win. It's not like that anymore. I think that when Miami left for the ACC, they basically ended their superiority and said, we're equal to you. Instead of the big fish in the small pond of the Big East, beating Florida State every year. No. They became their equal instead of their superior when they decided, yeah, we'll join that Florida State conference. Florida doesn't have to do that, though. Florida's in the SEC. They're not required to play Miami like Florida State is in the same conference. It's another reason. Yeah. They can do that sort of LSU to Tulane or that Penn State to Pitt. Hold their nose up and say, we're better than you. Keep the bums in your place. You're third place at best now, Miami. Be grateful we're giving you a game. Missouri-Tennessee does figure to be a big game, and you heard Caleb Calhoun on Asian House Vols talk about how that might be the key swing game of the season. Well, the thing is, it's possible, but it's played so late. Maybe Mississippi State or even BYU might be more so for Tennessee. Still, even though Missouri, as they stand right now, figures to be on probation and therefore can't play for the SEC title, I really think they're a big sleeper this year. And here's what Barry Odom, their coach, said about the team goals of the Missouri Tigers at SEC Media Days.
You look at the things that they've done together, the investment they have with each other, the brotherhood, the love, and the care for each other. I think drew a line in the sand and said, this is what we're going to do in 2019 as a team together, and they stood by it. It's a close group, and I think those opportunities that were presented to us are going to help us as we get down into the fall, into the season.
I just say this, bowl games, I don't think college football players play for bowl games anymore. They play for league championships, and they play for, division championship, conference title, obviously, and hoping to get into the national championship playoffs. That's what I think they play for. And so, Missouri, you can't go to a bowl game. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. I think that they still will try to play for, the division championship, and even if they can't play in the SEC title game, it'll be like, hey, you know what? We're better than anybody else. What do you mean, Alabama? You didn't get me down, Nick Saban. You didn't get me down, Ray. You didn't get me down. They become kind of Jake LaMotta, that sort of thing. All right. What we then have, though, with Missouri, that probation, though, it's on appeal. I would not be surprised if it was repealed. I really would not be surprised if it was. That's sort of my gut telling me there. And if that does happen, then, well, what about Missouri? What about the ego of this team shaping up in the SEC East?
Ideas of putting the right guys in the right spots to lead our program and our team, that's what I'm focused on. And I think we've got a tremendous staff of everybody that we've got in our room and in our entire organization. The ego is really, really low. We care about serving our kids the right way, and I'm thankful that I've got an opportunity to be the head coach with this group.
There you go. All right. Barry Odom, speaking some cliches, unless he's talking about Tennessee, and it's, why are you poaching my players? I know Caleb Calhoun has been writing about how, now it's a rivalry. And shouldn't Tennessee be upset that the Missouri coaches are talking about Tennessee, especially after 2 straight 50-17 defeats? But to be honest with you, I kind of think that it's Odom, and I think it'll be the Tigers that kind of look at Tennessee, now that they've decided to stay in Columbia, and say, hey, you pesky little guys, we don't want to go there, and now we're going to show you for the 3rd straight year. I kind of think Pruitt has put the burr under the Tigers' saddle, not Odom under the Vols. My opinion. And the game's going to be in Missouri this year, too. So remember that as well. By the way, if you didn't hear it in our last segment, I thought this was really, whenever you can play Ed Orgeron, come on. Beautiful voice there and all that. And, he's talking about, his offense. I could play that. You want to hear that clip here? This is offense. This is what he thinks about LSU.
I do believe that Joe, if we let him, would run into a brick wall, no matter what it took. He's that tough he has a linebacker mentality. We are going to use him on the quarterback runs, quarterback draws, but we're going to be careful how many times we run him a game. But it does add another element to our offense. But we still want to be physical. We have some physical backs. LSU is always going to be physical. We want to be 50-50 and run the football.
He's talking about Joe Burrow there as quarterback. Burrow is one of these sort of, what's he got guys. Not Tua. Not even Jake Bentley or Felipe Franks. He's just, Joe Burrow. And you heard Orgeron talk about him. Okay, we want to be a running quarterback. That's not what Tennessee wanted out of Jared Guarantano. Like Burrow has some question marks around him. And I find that interesting. Actually, I might say that's advantage Tennessee. You know that in quarterback development, I don't think you can scramble your way to a title, or certainly scramble your way to being a great passer. But Ed Orgeron, he's got bigger goals. He's not afraid to talk about slaying giants.
Now, we had some big wins. Auburn was a big win. Miami was a big win. Georgia was a big win. Those were big wins. We did not play well against Alabama. Now we have to go on the road and play them again. We have a very tough schedule this year, but we have a good football team, and we should be able to answer the bell.
All right, be able to answer the bell even with a trip to Alabama. Like I said, LSU and Alabama ought to be very comparable. All things considered, on an even strength year, comparable programs. Problem is, it's not an even strength year. Alabama is just, Alabama and Clemson and everybody else. Remember they used to say Big Ten was the Big Two, Ohio State and Michigan and the Little Eight? Right now, college football is the Big Two, Alabama and Clemson, and the Little 128. Anyhow, look at it that way. But before I talk about baseball here and finish up the show, I do want to tell you about Asian House. You've heard those commercials here that we've been running. You get 10% off if you mention my name. They reopen on Tuesday, so why don't you go down there today for dinner? Or you know what? They're still serving lunch, and they will pretty much through, I believe you can still call in up until 3. Actually, I'm not quite sure. You know what you ought to do? Go to goasianhouse.com and find out for yourself. But I do know that for at least another hour, they'll be accepting a lunch menu, which you can see at goasianhouse.com and pick it up. And also, you can find not only the best Japanese and Chinese food in this area at Asian House, which is on West Market, like you're going to Jonesboro from Johnson City or going to Johnson City from Jonesboro. Right there, the shops in West Market, that shopping center, plenty of parking, real easy to get to, right off of Leisure Lane. About a mile away from the intersection of State of Franklin and West Market, 11E, 321, that road and all that. But remember, a discount, 10% off, mention my name, Marky Billson, or the guy on a radio, or 1420 WEMB Sports Radio, that sort of thing, at Asian House. They're open Tuesday through Sunday, so yes, today is the happiest day in the Tri-Cities because Asian House is back open. And remember that happy box meal, a lot of food, not a lot of money, and it becomes even less money when you mention my name. Remember that too. Anyway, I wanted to get back to baseball in our final segments. I mentioned today that earlier in the show, I played some highlights of Daniel Norris. Didn't get the L, but yeah, another loss. And I'm saying that, best investment right now in sports seems to be betting against Daniel Norris, who's on an 8-game losing streak. And yes, in fact, the Indians, though, didn't get stuck with the L. They won 8-6. Here's the deal. You've got to ask yourself, burning question is Daniel Norris, is there more? That's what Chris McCoskey of the Detroit News is asking. And, he talks about Norris has historically micromanaged and beat himself up after his outings. Perhaps this is a reason why he hasn't fared so well. But I've got an idea about that micromanaging. Remember when he came out a couple of years ago that Daniel Norris was breaking the rules just about every time he pitched. You're supposed to throw the ball before 20 seconds are up. It's rarely enforced. He takes an average of 27 seconds between pitches. Slowest worker in the game, or at least he was 2 years ago. That's micromanaging. And that's something that I say, you want to see Norris get back on. I'm going to tell you, if you could be more of the throw ball, catch ball, look in for the sign and throw, rapid pace, I'm telling you, if Norris was thinking about it too much between starts or after the games, what about during the game? That's the point I want to make right there. And also, yes, Chris McCoskey, perhaps I should be calling him up again and seeing if he can make an appearance here on Tri-City Sports Now. By the way, Cubs, they lost to the Reds. They actually were hurt because Wilson Contreras got hurt, and he's on the injured list. So they made a deal, and they got a good glove catcher, but not a whole lot of stick. Martin Maldonado from the Kansas City Royals, 224 hitter. The interesting thing is that the guy that they traded for him, Mike Montgomery, who got the last out, he got the save, I believe, in the Cubs Game 7 World Series victory against the Cleveland Indians. But he just hasn't had very good stats, so change of scenery, new league, let's see what that does. Interesting. But not a lot of stick, but at least a glove, and so we'll see how long Contreras, the all-star catcher, is out for the Cubs. That could really hurt them in the pennant race. I'm Marky Billson. Colin Coward is next. I'll see you tomorrow at noon. We go to 2 every weekday. It's Tri-City Sports Now.
1920 W.